What if everything you've been taught about success, business, and even reality itself was built on constructs that were never meant to set you free? What if the systems that you've been so desperately trying to succeed inside of were actually never designed for you in the first place? If you've ever felt like you didn't quite fit into the traditional business model or questioned the narratives around success or achieved remarkable success, and once you got to the top, wondered, is this it? This conversation is going to stretch you. Our question today for this episode is what happens when you stop playing inside the constructs of business, identity, and success that you have been told are the things that you need to be doing, and instead step into a completely different way of being to live your full epic life? True leadership doesn't just come from mastering one system, it comes from seeing through it. And when you begin to dissolve the illusions that you've been operating inside of, you don't just change your strategy or hire a new person to work inside of that construct. You actually change your entire reality. Today's guest is someone who doesn't just challenge conventional thinking, he dismantles it. Justin Breen is a visionary entrepreneur, best-selling author, and deep thinker whose work sits at the intersection of consciousness, identity, and what's actually happening beneath the surface. His second book, Epic Life, became a Wall Street Journal and USA Today bestseller and the number one overall best-selling book on Amazon Kindle with a foreword by Peter Diamandis. In his upcoming book, Epic Journey, he explores what he describes as the dark night of the ego dissolution, a full dark night of the soul, a process that strips away the identity and reveals something far more fundamental. Justin is also the co founder of Corvia AI, an education platform merging creativity and artificial intelligence, and Aurum, a healing sanctuary for visionaries. But beyond accolades and the ventures and the business, which we'll get into, Justin brings a perspective that challenges our very foundation of how most people think about business. He often points out that even the word business comes from the Latin root meaning anxiety and questions whether what we're chasing is even real. He doesn't just operate in timelines, tactics, or traditional frameworks. He operates in truth and in stripping away illusion. And that's what we're doing in today's episode. I am Kimberly Spencer, founder of Crown Yourself, international TEDx speaker, and mentor to sovereign leaders who are here to build lives and businesses rooted in truth, alignment, and conscious leadership. This podcast is the Crown Yourself podcast, and we exist to challenge the way that you think about success, identity, and what is actually possible when you strip away the labels. If you're ready to question the constructs that you've been taught and release what no longer serves, and if you've got the courage to take some aligned action, hit the subscribe button so you never miss a conversation like this. And today I'm honored to have Justin Breen with us. Let's dive in. Welcome to the show.
I've done a lot of interviews. It's probably the best intro I've heard.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome. Thank you means acknowledging the other person's humanity.
What human constructs have been the most difficult for you to dismantle?
Well, there's so many. In human years, I just turned 49. And then my father was 61 when I was born. He was born in 1916. So I should be like 80, 85 years old. And then I have the mindset, the heart like a 4-year-old, like I'm a little kid. If anyone's read the book The Idiot by Dostoevsky, I'm like Prince Mishkin, who just like loves unconditionally, like no matter what, like just total unconditional love. So you have a super old soul, 49-year-old human body with like a kid heart. And then you try to combine all those three into one person and then spend your day talking to and listening to people like you who are really good at simplifying things and finding the heart of it. And then you just kind of learn. So that's the foundation. But, you said it in the intro. Business comes from the Latin word bisignus, which means anxiety. Sale comes from French Latin word sale, which means dull and dirty. Religion comes from religio, which means to bind. The most difficult one is family. That's from the Latin word familis, which means member of a household staff servant. So family was created as a slave system for the women and children for men. And there's obviously exceptions to that, but if you look at most family dynamics. When you really get to the heart of it, that's kind of what it is.
I could
And
definitely
then,
say I just got off a coaching
well,
call with a client, and that was exactly what it was.
well, that's all it is. So, like, when you learn this stuff, and it's not stuff, this is to me what really matters. So, when you learn it, it's great to be aware of it. But I guess I've made the very conscious awareness decision to do something about it in this lifetime, which is writing books or creating companies that hopefully help heal people with that. And then, I like, etymology. We talked about the roots of words, but I kind of relate that to like some of the books I've been reading lately because these things have been written already, so I've been reading Kierkegaard or Albert Camus or Dostoevsky. These authors were so far ahead of their time, and the world, the 3D world, wasn't necessarily ready for what they had to say, but they didn't necessarily care. And that's kind of how I am, like, to write this epic journey book, which is coming out in the middle of like the arguably the greatest controversy of our lifetime. And then, you know, I went ahead with still having Dr. Deepak Chopra do the introduction for it, in spite of many people telling me not to do that. But I don't believe in excuses and just following heart purpose. And so I decided to continue on that path. And
Can
then
you walk
that
me
book,
through why you made that decision?
well, the book is about not making excuses and following your purpose. And most of the world runs away from their own shadow. They run away from their own shadow. Carl Jung talked about that in his memoir. When you want to really look into yourself, people just run away from it. And I'm the opposite. I've done a lot of shadow work, a lot of shadow work. And then everyone has a shadow. So to dismiss that and run away from my own shadow and run away from a book that is about shadow behavior by not going through all the way with it would have been complete hypocrisy at the highest level. And what you have in leadership, of course, there are exceptions, but with leadership, you have people running away from their own shadows and projecting that shadow negativity onto society.
Mhm.
So I'd rather look into myself, heal my own heart, create things that hopefully help heal my own heart, and then help heal other people's hearts. And that's really the only way to. It's the only way to do it. Otherwise, we're going to continue to have what is happening in society now.
How does Dr. Deepak Chopra's intro, and I mean, I've been a fan of Dr. Deepak Chopra for years. I mean, quantum healing was a masterpiece, and that the shadow side that's being exposed in today's society,
Yeah.
how does incorporating that into the epic journey reflect it rather than turn someone off from even looking at their own shadow? Because our
Well,
egos
that's
can so get in the way.
100%. So, with that question slash summary, you just summed up what's really happening in society. And so, these authors, like I said, they didn't necessarily care about that. They went all the way with it, even if society wasn't ready. I've been reading about Kierkegaard. When he died, no one really cared. He was dismissed by society. He knew who the love of his life was, but they wound up never getting married because he focused on his work instead. And so he died in like, 1850s, and now his work is still being, it was pursued well after he died. Okay, so like, and then, with my dad, he was a World War II hero, shot down multiple times in combat. And then he would just get back into another plane, watched one of his good friends die in a plane crash where, the soldier melted in front of him literally. And then the commanding officer 20 minutes later is like, "Hey, can you go on another mission?" He's like, "Yeah." So, like, that's my baseline of, like, excuses, like, I just don't believe in them. And so, like, with my example is my father, like, if he can do that, and then my mom's a pure survivor. Most of the people, visionaries I talk to are pure survivors with very high IQ and EQ, and they never make excuses. So, like, that's what the book is. I guess it's a resource for, like, people that are willing to go all the way with something no matter what. And then with me, because I'm like a little kid, the 4-year-old part of me, I just follow my heart no matter what. And most people don't understand that because they're overthinking everything. And they're using their brain ego to overthink things as opposed to following their heart intuition. And all of my decisions in my life have been pure intuition, heart feeling, like a little kid.
How did you cultivate that discernment?
Great question. Well, it has not been easy because most of society doesn't live like that. Dr. David Hawkins, Scale of Consciousness. He spent his whole life working on that. And a scale of 0 to 1,000, most people, this is his work, but most people never got to 200, which is courage. And then courage comes from the Latin word cor, which means heart. So below courage, you have fear, apathy, grief. Um, so you have, most of society living in fear, apathy, grief, shame. Shame is the
Shame.
lowest one before death. Yeah. One of the
Mhm.
chapters in Epic Journey is about Day of Shame. I was in London looking at all the newspaper headlines. And it was just negative, negative. And I was a journalist for 20 years. So like I was a pretty good headline writer. So you just see negative, negative, negative. So you're just projecting all that shame. And then one of the headlines in the London paper was Day of Shame. So that was the chapter in the book. Robert Johnson, he was a young disciple and he worked on shadow behavior. And then I'm paraphrasing one of his quotes, but uh, the quote is, "For a select few, there's a determination to seek liberation from social hypnosis. For a select few, there's a determination to seek liberation from social hypnosis, social conditionings. We've been conditioned by achieve in business, achieve in anxiety, achieve in sales, dull and dirty, achieve in religion, to bind, achieve in family, which is essentially a slave system. And by the way, these things are fine. It keeps people employed and gives them financial gain. But in many ways, it also keeps them conditioned to not follow your heart and to follow logic. I've learned, I guess to answer your question, I've learned that logic only goes so far, and then after that, the only logic is illogic and love. So, pursued all this, and I'm like, well, logically, this makes sense in what the world is today, but people I talk to, no one's any happier. They're building a mask. Mask comes from the word QUE, which means fool, FOOL, not
Mhm.
FULL, FO. So we have, a society building a mask. That's all it is.
And I think in the conversations that I'm having with leaders and clients, it's so many people are so desirous and sometimes even desperate to strip away the mask, but one of the deepest fears is being fully seen.
Very unsafe. When that mask comes off, it's a very, but that's why it takes a select few people to actually do that, regardless if people are ready for that um, in their lifetime. And then just to be a human for a second, my sons are 13 and 11. And these are the discussions I have with them. And then writing this book led to a very amicable divorce from my wonderful ex-wife, who's a pediatrician. So my sons are half visionary maniac like me, and then she's a pediatrician, so they have love, warmth, grounding, logic, high IQ. So they have that, but as a father, my greatest role is like introducing them to this kind of things, and then they have her kindness, love, and empathy and logic. So they'll be able to take both of those things and really do a lot of great things with them. And I'm already starting to see that with them.
It's so beautiful when you see the ripple effect into kids. And also
Yeah.
when you're able to see their innate genius in their
Yes.
own regards, in their own special areas. Like I know
Yeah.
you met my son Declan.
Such a good boy. He's a good kid.
He's a good
He's so good. How old is he now? 8?
he's 8. Yeah.
Oh, he's a good kid. That kid's a genius. So he's a genius. I mean, you know that. And I don't say things like that. I don't flippantly say things like that. But he's a genius. And these entrepreneur things that I go to or used to go to, without exception, the smartest people there or the most evolved are the ones under 16, because they haven't been fully conditioned yet.
Mm,
And then your son, I think when I met him, he was 4 or 5, something like that.
yeah.
You see, so he hadn't been conditioned, and then, he has 2 parents that aren't gonna condition him. I mean, follow some rules, but, you homeschool, and then those opportunities are things. And then, my 13-year-old is my sons are like your children for sure, but, so the 13-year-old, when he was 12, he's like, "Dad, school is a prison." I go, "Well, you're right." But so that's funny, but it's true. I'm like, "Yeah, you have, bells, you have your move around to different rooms, you have your eating time, you have your athletic time."
And look
And
at
I'm
the
like,
quality of food.
the quality of well, for whatever it's worth, the school district that they live in, or I guess I live in too, is the number 1 public school district in the United States, so which is great, that's fine. So the food's pretty good there, but it's still a prison. So there's 2 things from that. 1, they're aware of that, that's very high level, EQ, emotional quotient, IQ. And then 2, I didn't say, "Well, don't worry about that," just don't, well, just do your job there. No, no. It's like, well, you're right. It is a prison. So be aware of that and then, navigate the system as opposed
Mhm.
to most people that are just like, well, do what you're told and be conditioned. So that's really my role as a dad.
It's, uh it's interesting because I've had a few discussions with some female leaders who, in response to it was a post that Cody Sanchez posted about a study that was like 30 women who are just
Uh-huh.
put on a little bit of makeup make 30% more than when they don't. And I was like, yeah, I'll, put on some lipstick. I'll wear some mascara. What,
Put on that mask.
30% more?
Put on
I'm
the
okay.
mask.
Yeah. But I know I'm operating inside the system. And I know that also communication, 55% is physiological and it's so is what we're perceiving from somebody else and how they look. So if you
Yep.
don't look put together, and I've had that discussion with my kids, I'm like, okay, you want to sell some eggs to our neighbors. Great. If you're going in your like torn up slippers and like your house clothes, you can, but
Could
just
do that.
recognize the perception of how and play how can you play the game, but also know and recognize that you're in the game. Because I have some leaders, female leaders who are like, "Oh, I don't wanna, put on makeup. I don't wanna do that." I said, "You don't wanna make 30% more?" Like, 'cause money's a game, it's all a game. It's all a bunch of
It's all
constructs
a
that we
game.
that we built up, and I think we're in one of the most interesting times in human history because so many constructs are literally crippling in front of us
In real time, yeah, and that's
in real
what's
time.
interesting about this book, like, it took 2 years for it to come out, and it's coming out right now, which and then I'm a manifestor in human design, that's very rare. So this
Oh,
was
that's
pre-manifest.
that's
Are you a manifest?
2 of my kids. No, 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 that's Declan, and my daughter
Oh,
is,
cool.
Reagan. She's a manifestor as well.
Are you a manifesting generator?
I'm a projector.
Oh, you're a projector. Okay, great. So you'll take my energy and ask a lot of good questions, and then you have to be invited into things, which is good. But okay, great. So it's very rare to be a manifester. My younger son is a manifester, and you have two. Wow. Never tell them what to do. Not that you would anyway, but no, let them just do. Oh, okay. So two things from what you said. So one of the chapters in the original manuscript of the book, and then I'm openly talking about this, but I wrote, you talk about shadow. I wrote this book for a woman who I was married at the time that is, not my ex-wife. And the chapter about her it was taken out, but it's called Beautiful Woman Syndrome, BWS. So Beautiful Woman Syndrome. So B is for body. Most men, I guess most people in general look at the body, and then U is will, and then S is soul. So I see people at a soul level very quickly. Like the man part of me, like outer beauty is great, but I see people's souls right away. Every day someone tells me that I see them unlike anyone's ever seen them because I just cut right through all the BS, I guess right through the mask. So that was a chapter in the original manuscript, Beautiful Woman Syndrome. And then I would say 50% of the folks I talk to are women entrepreneurs. And to simplify, certainly not all, but many of them have given up on men. They're tired of being the 10, 20% of,
Mhm.
and no one's disagreed with me on the, I always laugh because I'm like, they're tired of dealing with egotistical men who only look at them for how they look, tired of all the nonsense, tired of not having the freedom to really talk about how they feel. And then since finishing this manuscript in May of 2024, so it's almost 2 years since then. Wow. I've done a deep dive into this from a personal and then like just having these conversations. I guess if you want to call it dating or whatever that's called. But like so from a woman perspective, please tell me if you disagree. No one has yet, but from a woman perspective, it's thousands of years of being traumatized, abused by men or women. So it's a condition at like a cellular level. And so when I guess a good man comes along or good woman, it's like it doesn't make any sense. Like, wait, this person is actually treating me kindly. And it's like one of my friends describes it as like a snowflake falling in the summer.
Mm.
And then from a man perspective, because technically I'm a man, there's nothing more painful than unconditionally loving a woman, I guess, or loving a man too, and then that's rejected or dismissed because it's not understood. And so what we have is unhealed folks, unhealed hearts, projecting that unhealed hearts onto others, and then creating unhealthy, unhealed relationships. And then men, again, this is very simplified, men who unconditionally love women and it's rejected, and then men become narcissists or they
Mhm.
scale that into something else, and then women not knowing what to do with a man who or a woman who unconditionally loves them. So it's this massive chaotic. Are you disagreeing with any of this, or I'm just
I
curious?
am not disagreeing. I joke that my husband was my experiment in complete unadulterated honesty.
Wow, right. How long did it take you to trust him? I'm curious.
It took about, I mean, I trust him. I knew I loved him, and it took about
Yes,
6 months to strip away a lot of masks.
that's fast. That's
There
fast
was
for
a
most.
lot of masks. There was also a lot of trauma, like personal in this lifetime trauma, not just generational
Right, I get it.
programming that was passed down. And then on top of it, being able to, like, with women, it's looking at the sister wound, and I've coached a lot of women over the past decade, and every high performing, high
Yes,
achieving woman I have ever worked with has said it was never the men who held them back, it was always the woman. And I think it's because women swung the pendulum of our own
yes,
egos to the other side to try to, get the
overswung.
vote, to get the respect, to get the job, and
And
not reaching back to support the other women who are rising up
right,
together. And
correct.
because there can only be the reason why there's only one woman at the boardroom table or at the production table is because the other women have not reached back and supported. And
Okay, there you
I
go.
think and that's the sister wound. That's, we were burned at the stake for ratting each other, like, or had
100%.
the threat of
Literally.
being burned at the stake for ratting each other out, like, for being healers and intuitive, and
Yes.
we just
Wow.
have that generational trauma that is
Yes.
built in. And when I work with women, and I'm like, "Listen, ladies, we have only been able to actually make money in this country for 200 years.
Point.
Money is a construct developed by men."
Everything is, for the most part, is a construct. For the most part, again, there are exceptions, but for the most part, it's been created by men with ego. And then,
Mhm.
for whatever it's worth, the book is about the rise of divine feminine leadership. Again, I'm a man technically, right? So, divine feminine leadership, which is creativity, love, harmony. I thought you'd find this interesting, even though I think you're only a two fact finder in Colby, but I think you will find this fact interesting. In the last 200, 300 years, only one war has been started primarily.
Mm.
Every other war has been started primarily by a man.
I find that very interesting.
Good.
I do. I also think, like, we were at SeaWorld the other day. I took the kids for homeschool day, and we were watching the orcas, and they just made me cry because they were so beautiful. And
With their
orcas
fin,
operate in a
the curved
matriarchal
fin.
society,
Yeah.
and they collaborate in teams, and they hunt in teams in order to support the food being distributed throughout the group. I think women, in the rise that is happening in the divine feminine, how can we create more unity? Because I've seen women who have the perception of they're operating divine feminine, but I'm like, no, you're still masking. You're operating in unhealed masculine. That's not divine feminine. Is shaming the men. It's
Right.
creating divine unity in between, with the masculine and the feminine.
Right. That's what the book's about. That's hilarious. What are you in numerology, by the way? What's your life path number? Do
A
you know?
9.
Oh, you're a 9. That makes sense.
What are you?
9, you wanna guess?
9
I'm an 11.
and 11.
Yeah. So that reactions really don't exist, but they do. It's
Mhm.
a master number. So just to, like,
Mhm.
because everything that you're talking about, I didn't even know what this stuff was 2 years ago when I was writing the manuscript. So an 11, the first half of their life, they're a double one energy. So what that means is uh, double ego, double leadership, double achievement. One energies are ego, leadership, achievement. So that's the first half of an 11's life. The second half of an 11's life, they transition into a 2. So age 45 to 50, which I'm 49. So that's divine feminine, hopeless romantic, love, harmony, and it's merging both of those into one person. It's extremely difficult. Both Obamas are 11s. Tony Robbins is an 11. Michael Jordan's an 11. Kobe Bryant was an 11. He would have been a far bigger entertainer in Hollywood than he was a basketball player, for sure, but he died. So that's like a typical 11. So Carl Jung called wounded healers. They go through horrific dark night of the souls. And then most 11s can't handle it. It's too much. They're the most sensitive, the most visionary. It's the most feeling of everything. So it's a very difficult existence, but apparently it's also the last incarnation on this planet. Thank God. Really don't want to go through this again, but 11s and 9s are good. Started to Corvia with Eric. He's a 9. He's very grounding, at least for me. He's like a bridge for me into the human world, but 9s are very spiritual for the 1 through 9s. They're like the most spiritual.
Yeah, I've been told that by a few clients that I'm like the bridge that can merge
Right.
3D principles and how to operate with inside the game with 5D consciousness.
Okay. So 1, thank you for saying that. 2, so again, manifestor, I know this because you understand you have 2 manifestors and I'm 11 life paths. So I say things and then almost every single conversation I have, the person that I'm talking to says what you just said. Oh, like, oh, that's what people tell me all the time. So somehow, I guess through learning, but like also like in seeing the patterns, but like just intuitively knowing that somehow, there's no lie. You just know. So you're saying these things, and then manifestors have to say how they feel no matter what to create peace. For whatever it's worth, if it's helpful for you, manifestors have naturally repelling energy, so they will repel most people. Because if they give this energy to everyone, you'll self destruct. So you have to be very selective who you give this energy to. But it's to say how you feel no matter what to create peace. And it's saying things that intuitively you feel, not think, you feel, or you know on a heart level, on a soul level that you know they're true, and then you just say them no matter what. So that's what, the book is. That's what the companies are and will be. So your kids will benefit from things like that. And understanding that, and manifestors are 7 to 9% of the population, so it's very rare.
It's a small percentage,
Very small.
but
Yeah.
many live in my house.
Yeah, my 11-year-old Chase is a manifester and he's a life path too. So I'm like him on steroids, which is really horrifying, but he's the sweetest, he's just so sweet. And when he was 8, we were talking about bending time and IQ. So when he was your oldest son's age. And so Chase considers, well, at least when he was 8, he considered it this, but he considered life one long great day. So there's no years or weeks or days, or, well, there is one day, but so one long day. So yesterday's before you were born, tomorrow's after you die. And then he said there are 2 ways to have a great long day. 1, create more living things, which could be a human, a company, plant a tree, I don't know, foundation. And then 2, do what you like to do and what you're good at and keep getting better at it. And you talked about success and the opening. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Success is the progression of a worthy ideal. So that's the way I look at success. And then, my worthy ideal, I guess, used to be like, you know, connecting visionaries or scaling companies, but I learned that's not really the worthy ideal, but it led to what it is now. So you just progressively, try to keep going with that path no matter where it goes.
I think one of the interesting things is with the etymology of business and you having had so much success and and success in the 3D realm of in businesses. For our audience of many who have their own business, who are entrepreneurs,
Yeah, you said that
how
word a
do we
lot.
navigate through the construct of ensuring that we're operating in a worthy ideal and building companies to create something that's beyond us, not just to
Wow.
be in a state of anxiety?
It's very difficult. I guess 2 practical things are like I need to be around bridges, whether you call those integrators, someone with higher follow through, someone who enjoys actually scaling companies.
Mhm.
that kind of stuff, because I have 0 interest in it. I've tried to do that. But the other thing is following your heart, going with your gut, and that's a very difficult thing to do. It's a very difficult thing to do. And, you can keep going down the business scaling, you can keep going down that. I would say without exception, I've talked to thousands of people. Anyone who's gone down that hole, they're just chasing things that don't make them happy. I really have not met one person who's genuinely happy doing that. They're just searching for more and more when they're not healing their own heart. So I guess to fully answer your question is look within,
Mhm.
whether that means meditation or counseling or plant medicine, whatever that modality is. I mean, that's the goal for Orem, the sanctuary is to really whatever modality that's going to be, but to have a place where people can come whenever they want to and heal what they need to heal. Um, because what the book's about is just we just have a giant world of unhealed hearts. I mean, that's really what it's just a broken heart.
How do we see our heart wounds when we're so busy living inside them?
When you're so anxious, when you're so busy, when you're so anxious, it's well, I put this in the book too for whatever it's worth. Like again, I was writing this stuff, I had no idea I didn't know what I was doing. But I was just following my heart. But so what I've been able to learn is one of my friends, his name is Dr. Carlos Warder. He's like a real life alchemist. And so he talks about in some of his books that he slows down and then, closes his eyes or whatever you want to do it. And then he breathes. And then he says to himself, I'm ready to listen to my heart now. And then you just kind of say, I'm ready to listen to my heart now. So I've gotten pretty good at that. And then again, for whatever it's worth, I write a lot of songs now. And that's what Corvia is. It's teaching people how to write songs with artificial intelligence. And when doing that, whether it's listening to music or just listening to nothing or feeling the ether or whatever you want to call it, or feeling somebody's soul, that's a really good way of slowing down and processing emotion. So whether it's writing songs or poems or articles or painting, doing something with the divine feminine creativity energy that we all have. I mean, men technically are half women, XY chromosomes. So, and then men have been conditioned not to express emotion for the most
Mhm.
part. That's what I'd recommend.
How do we operate in this intersection with AI
Mm,
where a lot of our human power and our creativity is being outsourced and our intellect is being abdicated to having AI think for us and create for us, quite frankly, too?
yeah. Well, there's two things from that. One, I look at AI as a collaborator. I never thought I'd have an AI songwriting company that teaches people how to make AI songs. Like I didn't even know you could do that year and a half ago. And so that type of creativity has been extremely helpful for healing my own heart, helping show people their own souls or their own hearts. It's been a great collaborator. The second thing is AI can be extremely dangerous as a sycophant or a fan. I've seen this personally, and then again, talking to others in general, how it just agrees with you.
Mhm.
And it can be very, 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 very dangerous, delusional. And really, the only way to kind of go through that is that, be a guinea pig or trial and error. That's really the only way. But, if you look at social media in general, it was created by high IQ, not necessarily the highest EQ folks. So antisocial people on spectrum creating social media. And so, hey, by the way, it's great we're talking right now. We're creating, on this platform, but it's also separated us and isolated us a lot more. And so the exciting part of that, I look at everything abundantly for the most part. And you said this already, but we're living in this time now where we can actually determine the direction it goes. There's a great book called The Fourth Turning. It was written in the mid 1990s. Okay, thank you for acknowledging that. And then it basically predicted what was happening now, which is the fourth turning, which is a crisis moment. Crisis means fracturing. And so we'll just focus in the United States because we're, in the US. So every 80 to 85 years in the United States, we have some type of crisis. So right now we're definitely in the crisis. I would say it's a war for your inner heart, but you're also having like, outer wars for sure and economic things and inflation, all this. Okay, so you have that. So 80 to 85 years ago was World War II, and then 80 to 85 years ago um, was the Civil War, and then 80 to 85 years before that was War of Independence. So you have this time frame. So then after that crisis, there's an awakening. There's that awakening moment. So we're like right at the crisis thing, for the next couple of years. Hopefully not a nuclear war, although I've talked to the smartest people I know have all said that we're headed somehow in that direction. And I believe
Mhm.
those folks. I mean, these are the smartest people I know, and I don't say that lightly.
And the astrology is very much in alignment with.
Which there's no logic in that. So, by the way, astrology was the original, if you want to call it science, but it couldn't be proven by logic, so it was replaced by astronomy.
Mhm.
Most people don't know that, but that's what. So astrology was like considered science, but logic couldn't prove it. So you have really smartest people, the highest IQ folks, and then I didn't know the astrology was showing that too. So thanks
Especially in
for
July of this year.
great. So we're headed that way, but that makes sense. Doesn't make sense, but it does make sense if that makes sense. But after that, there's this awakening. There's a really good movie I just watched about Benjamin Franklin. I think it was called An Awakening or something like that. It's really good, but his friend was like this preacher who got exiled from England and then he came to the US. And then his speeches, he had a voice that could project to 30,000 people without a microphone, obviously. And then his like fervor was the real reason, according to Franklin, why we had the independence and the heart set and mindset to break away from England. That was the real reason. So we're in that crisis now for sure. I mean, if you look at wars and what's going on in the Middle East, and then with
Mhm.
all the Epstein stuff, which is that's not gonna end. I mean, that's gonna be a trickle effect for a long time. I owned a PR firm and was a journalist for 20 years, so that's just my whole life has been, that's where it's going with that for sure. But after that, there will be that awakening, and then it's creating things now that people again might not be ready for right now, but they will be eventually, even if it's not within my own human body life. That's really immaterial. Pun not intended.
But pun received.
Thank you. Thank you for saving the pun. Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for laughing at our high intellect humor. Good.
With looking at, like, I have to say, Justin, going down this rabbit hole, I got to really just thinking about words, and I have such a love affair with language and how it does gauge our perception of reality.
Yep.
Like, even just a simple word as simple as occupation, to occupy, it comes from that word, and thinking of an occupation of something is occupying you, whether it's the entity of greed or the entity of your higher self.
Occupy comes from occupare, which means seize.
Mm.
Yeah, here we go. So, a now obsolete vulgar sense have sexual relations with seems to have led to a general avoidance of the word in the 17th and most of the 18th century. There you go.
There
That's
you
what it
go. And I think also, especially because sex power is one of our greatest assets in alchemy. It is the magic that literally creates life. I have to say, I've never
correct.
felt more powerful than when birthing my children.
Well,
Like,
how
true.
could you feel more I mean, that's so as humans, that's why we're here. That's why any
Mhm,
living thing is here. That's why so you can't argue that. Otherwise there would be no life. So,
mhm.
of course, like that's what it also, the other thing from that, by the way, the word you say a lot, which is a good one, is client. So that comes from the like to lean on support. So that's a good one in the
Oh,
business world. Client's a
phew.
good one. Yeah, thank God. There's one good freaking word. But the one of my friends, Melissa Bernstein, she co-founded Melissa and Doug Toys, and then she had $1 billion exit and all that stuff. And so she's in her either late 50s or early 60s, and she talks openly about this. So she's okay with me talking about it, but she's been suicidal most of her life, so that's why she created that company to, keep herself from committing suicide. And then she married Doug, Melissa and Doug Toys. Doug is a stabilizer, a stabilizing human like my ex-wife. And They have 5 children. Melissa and I have in the past have had talks about this, and she makes the argument, which part of me does agree with, that people like us uh, shouldn't have children because our purposes are so strong that it's very difficult to operate in the 3D matrix with human children. So I agree
Mhm.
100% with what you said. And I'll also make the argument that how you're raising your children is the ideal way for a visionary to do it in terms of homeschool and just kind of keep them out of prison, pun intended on that one. But,
Yes.
but I also agree with her, even though me and her, she, you, I don't remember how the pronouns, but we all have human children, but it is really difficult to be a human parent in this world. So it's finding that middle ground of being the visionary, but also like, hey, you got to pick your kids up at school or whatever that means. You have to, take them, so
Speaking of
feed them.
human children.
Right, there you go. So this, hey, hello. So yeah, that's what I mean. So like it's a really difficult thing for anyone to do, but especially a visionary who has this purpose that, and you talked about this as well, that goes beyond this lifetime. Like it just does.
It does, and
Not easy.
and I think that there also is the power of integration of both. I have always, since I can remember, have always seen the 2 wildly integrated. It's why I'm no longer with my ex that I ran off and got married to when I was 22, because he could not see how motherhood could be integrated with the
Hmm,
level of
makes sense.
career, of desire, of purpose that I had, how it was part of it. It wasn't all encompass like, but
Yes.
it is all encompassing, but that's what purpose and living in alignment with your higher self, that your divine purpose, why you were created here to be, for me,
Yes.
that has also always been being a mother, 100%. And then seeing what evolves from there and how I'm leading my kids and how I'm demonstrating through example and how we steward. That's why I love my last name, quite frankly. Like,
Well, so
it means to steward.
I did not. That's well. Wow. Okay, let me slow down for once in my life. That's extremely powerful. And then that relationship when you were 22, that's called a karmic relationship where you learn a lesson. That's another thing I've learned is like, there's soulmates and karmics, or then there's like some people call it a twin flame or a soul mirror or whatever that is. And the karmic, you learn a very painful lesson, and then hopefully you learn from that. And then that person who you're with, I understand his perspective. Like I get it, I understand it.
Mhm,
But then you were aware enough to actually do something about it, which I've also seen in society is most people play not to lose, or they stay in a marriage, a loveless marriage. And then that's, to me, that's the worst thing you can do for your children,
mhm.
because they learn how to not love. And then, with my kids, I'm extremely, extremely open. I think most people would argue I'm too open with them about, you know, the relationships I have or the dating thing, but I really want them to see what's going on in the world. So because they're probably going to go through what you went through as a 22-year-old. I mean, maybe they won't, but probably they will. So at least they can use my experiences as an example. And then like, again, my shadow fully, I fell in love with someone who was not my ex-wife, and I wrote that book for her, and I have told my children that, and I'm very honest about that.
How do you know the difference between love, lust, and and the egoic desire to be right
Oh
about
my god,
which one
wow,
it
are you
is?
smart. Okay, I have spent the last 5 years logically and illogically looking at that completely. You don't know for sure, but what I will say in real life examples, if it's helpful. So 5 years ago, when I was very happily married, my wife and I were having a conversation. My wife at the time, we're having a conversation, and I go, "I know the person you should be dating." Okay? And then after we got amicably divorced, she sent me a message saying, "I know you already know this, but I'm dating this person now." I go, "Well, good. You should have been you should have been dating him 5 years ago." So I don't know if that's ego, but I guess in a super weird way it is, but also it's like I just like there was no doubt in my mind or heart that how it should be. In terms of this woman I wrote the book for, the way I feel about her at a soul level, not as a human 3D level. And the songs, like I can write songs about people, but about her, I can't write like that for anybody else. So intuitively, I feel her soul so strongly, way beyond a 3D existence. It's not even really a 3D, it's not really a 3D existence. So that's the way I look at love. I'll probably spend the rest of my life trying to figure out that exact thing that you just asked. And that's really what the book is about. It's it's a twin flame journey or whatever you want to call it. You talked about, Gary Sinise in the intro, and, he's most known for Lieutenant Dan, Forrest Gump. But Forrest Gump was a twin flame journey movie. That's all it is. That's really
Mhm.
what it is. And
What
he
is the
just,
difference between a twin flame and a soulmate?
well, it's a great question. What I know now as a 49-year-old is a soulmate is more of a 3D kind of, have children with this person. Doesn't necessarily lead to a spiritual awakening, dark night of the soul, ego dissolution. A twin flame it's like literally your soul mirror, and it forces you to look inward. And I don't usually talk about this, but you ask. And then since, writing this manuscript, I've talked to so many people who have experienced what I'm experiencing, and it's the same thing. It's like it's led to a divorce or this, new job or moving out of your house or wherever that is. It's the most painful thing they've ever experienced by far. But their consciousness has also evolved immensely. They've become extremely spiritual, extremely intuitive, and again, to be fair, I didn't believe any of this stuff 2 years ago. I didn't even know I had no idea what this was. But I will say the value of technology, and social media is that it's allowed more of these type of situations. And, you know, Beethoven, um, Beethoven's most famous letter was to his immortal I get emotional with this. So his most famous letter was to his immortal beloved, but society wouldn't allow him, or he was afraid to send it. He never sent it. They found it after he died, 15 years after he died. And so my book is that letter, like I had to write it.
Does she know?
Oh yeah, oh, yeah, yeah. So yeah,
In
for
a
sure.
twin flame relationship, from speaking to those who have experienced them, that's not like I completely know. Like, I know for a fact my relationship with my father and my relationship with my ex were karmic contracts. Yeah, we're very much karmic contracts. Um, but in that space, that the twin flame relationship can be incredibly activating, like you said, yes, for consciousness, but not necessarily does that mean that you're together, and a lot of people misconstrue that that is the
The
case that
hardest part.
happens, and
The
that's
hardest.
not always how it goes.
No. I would say most of the time, from a 3D experience, most of the time it doesn't go that way. Again, I didn't understand or know any about this, but usually what happens is one of the folks, if not both, are avoidant attachment, so they run away from vulnerability. In this lifetime, they're just not ready for it. But sometimes they do come together. I've met a few people that have done it. Extremely rare. But the other thing is like surrendering to outcome, not having an attachment to outcome. That's been the hardest lesson for me. I didn't understand any of that. I do now, but that relationship, like, it led to that book. It led to this music songwriting stuff. Like, I wasn't this person before. It led to me looking to heal my own heart. I wouldn't have been talking like this 2 years ago. And then I know it's helped a lot of people just having discussions like this. And that's how I look at that relationship. But in terms, I don't think I can love somebody else like that. I've tried. I just don't think I can. I've tried really hard.
What does it mean to you now to open your heart to someone, or is it always open?
It's always open. Always. Man, it's, again, Prince Michigan. Well, let me amend that. So, it's always open if I feel someone's soul, if I feel that connection, like, I just open it right away. But again, manifestors, for the most part, they have a closed, repelling aura, so it does not open like this for everyone. I guess transformational part of that is creating companies where it's like a book that is a bridge from my heart into society's heart. But, like, on an individual one-on-one level, I'm not designed to do that, to open my heart to everyone. I would self-destruct. If my heart was open like this for everyone, I would blow up. I mean, I would. There's no doubt about that. Anyone would.
What do you foresee as your path now moving forward in this 3D world, especially given the times ahead?
Well, I don't really think about that stuff. There's only 2 things that I know for sure. There's only one thing I know for sure, but I guess 2 is 1, that book is gonna help a lot of people. It just is. And then 2, from a human relationship perspective, either the person I wrote the book for, it will lead to a union, or I will have healed myself so much that it will attract someone who's also done that type of healing. Because as a human, I just don't feel we're supposed to be alone. I just don't feel that. I'm not a monk or a priest. Like I don't want that existence. So it will lead to the right person. And then I've been a guinea pig with that, dating many women who are just spectacular. But it wasn't aligned in all the ways. But to answer your earlier question, like I will never stop pouring my heart out if I feel like it's the right fit. Like I will not do that. I will not be like Beethoven who did not send that letter. Like to me, that's the worst. Or Kierkegaard, he was in love with this woman, but he gave up on that to focus on his writing. And I'm just not like that. If it's helpful my mom was 27 when I was born and my dad was 61. And then they met after he was hit by a drunk driver. The drunk driver was killed. And then my dad, he survived it. He woke up, he thought he was dead, and my mom was an angel, but she was his night nurse. She was dating someone else, and she asked him if she should marry that guy, and he said yes, so she wound up marrying the other guy. He waited for her, and then she got divorced, and then he just waited. And then they got married, and here I am. So I'm literally a product of that, which is like the ultimate love story. I mean, it just is. And so I'm wired like that, and so my dad just loved my mom, obviously, just loved her unconditionally. So and then he died when I was 13, and I followed his war diary from World War II to France because he drew a map in there that I'm just like, "Oh, I'm just gonna go there," and then found in that town in France, that the world was a giant broken heart. So I guess that's logic or illogic, but I just follow my heart and I will never stop doing that. I guess that's really the answer to your question. I won't ever stop following my heart. I just can't do it. I'm not capable of it. No matter how
Mhm.
painful it is, I will not stop doing that.
And I think that's the medicine for the world. If we
Not even.
if w just crack open, our hearts a bit more
Yes,
and not in performative vulnerability as well.
great point. Wow, that's really powerful what you just said. Well, you've done TEDx talks and you've been on the stage, and that's great. But a lot of that is literally it's just staged. It's just a presentation.
Mhm. It's playing inside the game.
It's playing inside the game, which you're
It's
better
like
at that than I am. You are. I mean, you just are. Uh,
maybe it's my 9.
It's your well, it is. I mean, it is. So that's what and you're a protector. I mean, I'd rather just go all the way with something and then see what happens. To me, that's the only way to heal my heart. At this point, it's not. I was definitely in the performance stage before I get that. This is definitely, you know, at least beyond that, I'm sure there's some type of performance involved, but it's more of like pure raw emotion. And every day I'm learning more and more about that. But I would agree with you that it's the best medicine is cracking your own heart. I think that's the only medicine to really
Mhm.
heal.
And letting yourself be seen and heard and known as much of who you are, and also being aware of who you think you are.
Wow. You're a really good intuitive. Be interesting to see what your children do. Be interesting.
Mm,
Very interesting.
yep. I'm very excited to see that journey. I don't yet have a clear read on Reagan on my little list. She's,
Children. Well, go ahead. Go on.
she's
Manifest.
she's quite a soul.
Well, that's so okay. So I was literally about to say children's souls, if you believe this. I do. I mean, there's no proof of this, but I believe children's souls choose their parents. So,
I do too.
okay, thank you. I mean,
Yeah.
we have no proof of that. I don't think we do. Maybe science will prove that one day. But so, like, when my kids get mad at me, I go, "Well, you chose me as your dad. Don't blame yourself. I didn't do anything." So that's a
Take
joke, but I'm being
responsibility
serious.
for your choices. No
I did.
excuses.
Well, right. And you chose your parents. You chose your karmic partner, dad, or whatever. So you did that, if you believe that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, every sign I have had since my father's passing has been an absolute guide. And we have a better relationship now than we did when he was in his human form. And it's weird for
Of
some people
course.
to like hear
Makes
that or
sense.
say that, but like ultimately
Did you say
when
weird?
he
Did you say
passed,
weird?
yeah, weird.
So weird
But
comes from WYRD, which means following your purpose. So that is weird. That's why.
ooh, I love
That's why
it.
it's weird.
I love it.
Well, that's what it is. Right.
When he passed, I felt his soul. I felt
Of
him
course.
and he passed from and I'll never go back and visit his grave because that's,
Oh, interesting.
I felt his humanness. When I did, and I felt every entity attached to that that I never want to experience again.
Wow.
But
Phew,
his
you are a
soul
deep
of
soul.
who he
Wow.
was one of the most generous, kindest, and heart open people when he allowed himself to be. And feeling that, it has guided me into making decisions and growing and growth. And I see that now with my boys in how
Mm.
we're nurturing and stewarding their emotions and allowing themselves to be seen and witnessed in their bigness and in their beautifulness and also guiding and labeling. I just had Doug Knoll on the show and he has probably one of the best contexts of he's been a professional mediator in just how to communicate with emotions and how to just label them and name it to tame it. And so recognizing and labeling all of those emotions and giving them a wide emotional vocabulary, it shifts their perception of themselves. And it also to know that those emotions don't have to control you. Like our subconscious mind, it's the domain of the emotions. It loves to be distracted. It's very easily distracted and yet it's the one that also is that source of intuition and it's connected to higher consciousness when we allow it, when we know how to work cohesively in the holy trinity of the conscious mind, the unconscious mind, and higher consciousness.
We would not have had this conversation when we first met.
I know, it's been a bit.
You were
To to be fair,
very involved.
to our audience, we, have known each other since I think 2022, because we
Yeah.
met in, Peter Diamandis's Abundance 360. And yeah, so it's been a few years and just watching your evolution
Yours too.
and, having the honor of receiving the first copy years ago of one of the first drafts of Epic Journeys and being able to see the journey that you've been on
Oof.
is is it's hard. Like awakenings, like the tower moment of everything construct of all the constructs crumbling, it sucks and is not for everyone to choose. And
It's not for everyone. It's not.
if you don't want that, you don't have to, but man, if you want to be awakened to the secrets of the universe of just and
Have fun.
unlocking parts of your own power,
Yeah.
it's one of the greatest journeys to go on, but it definitely is one where you throw up your hands and there's a lot of surrender and a lot of layers of stripping of all the
Yes.
plagiarized programming that we've adopted through
Mm.
the years.
Well, you went through, 22. I would say that's an earlier lesson than most people. Maybe not that most people go through, but I would say it's a lesson you learn from and then evolve from earlier than most folks do. I've met a few folks that have had those type of experience where they really learn in their early 20s, but that's very rare. Usually, from what I've seen or heard or experienced, it's, more of early 40s, mid 40s, late 40s. And then if for whatever it's worth, again, to somewhat ground this in human design, that's another good if you want to call it an assessment. Again, we talked about that. You're a projector, I'm a
Mhm.
manifester. But the true wisdom doesn't kick in human design until age 50. So I'm -1. I haven't been born yet, technically, and you're negative whatever you want to be. I'm not gonna, but so you haven't really been born yet. So it's actually appreciating that the true wisdom doesn't really kick in until age 50. And I guess, with this book coming out, now in this. And then if you think about it from a, like a biological standpoint, it's like a butterfly, like a caterpillar going into a chrysalis. And then before it becomes a butterfly, the caterpillar melts. A positive disintegration, it literally melts, disintegrates. And then if you open the chrysalis too early, this ooze will come out of it. So you have to, as a human existence, you have to solidify before you can come out of the chrysalis as a butterfly. So I'm like right about to come out of that chrysalis.
Mhm.
Whatever it's worth, I think you came out of that chrysalis earlier than most people. It's pretty
I've
rare.
gone back into the chrysalis a few times.
You probably will again, but I would say,
I'm still
again,
on the planet. I
yes, you
think
got, there's
I
still
would say
time.
22. Well, and here's what's really interesting, Justin. 22,
Keep
then
going.
33 was when I
Yeah, so 44, there you go. They
yeah, so
both master
44, we'll
numbers.
see what happens.
Well,
Not there
that's
yet.
like a rare sister number. Like I have never met a 44. I know Melissa Bernstein's a 33. My partner for Orem is a 33. That's a master healer. And then 22 is a master builder. The best example is Richard Branson. He's a 22. And then Melissa
And
Bernstein.
what is that in?
That's a master builder. So that's a
Oh,
4
master.
on steroids. A 4 is like grounded, logical. They can scale companies, but a 22 is a 4 on steroids. So an 11
Mm.
is a 2 on steroids. A 22 is a 4 on steroids, and 33 is a 6 on steroids. Sixes are
Ooh.
very sweet and loving. Oh, they're very. I've dated a few sixes. They're very sweet. They're so kind and loving. Very sensitive. Very sweet.
Have you studied Claire Graves and the levels of consciousness as well? And the values
No,
levels?
send me that. Send me that. I'll read that. I'll read that for sure. Is that similar
Highly
to Hawkins or yeah, send that to me.
It's not similar to Hawkins. Hawkins was more on emotional levels. This is really on the evolution of consciousness. And like for example, it's in most of the world right now. They're trying to operate as a level 5, which is typically an entrepreneur,
Uh-huh.
but ultimately they're operating in 3, and you cannot move up to level 5 unless you have processed through 4. So, and you cannot move on from 5. A lot of people wanna think they're 6, and well, they're like, "Oh, go hippie, go live on a beach for forever," but 6 is really a Jimmy Buffett where you, like, sell everything. It's no longer about material possessions. It's like, let's Margaritaville's great, but, like, I'm gonna go play guitar on the beach somewhere, but you have to have built something substantial outside of you, an external entity, a business, a company to live externally outside of you beyond that. It's,
Makes sense.
most of the world right now is operating in a 3, which is a hyper individualistic, trying to move into a 4, but it's doing this dance between 3 and 4 where we are so hyper individualistic and yet then
Yep.
also struggling with the constructs of reality and the religions
Wow.
and the systems and to evolve into a 5, moving past those systems and recognizing them for what they are, but then becoming a designer and building your own.
Right.
Really interesting. I know you'd
That's
be right up the
literally
alley, like,
what that's literally what
but
I'm in the
here's the
middle.
thing, you cannot with any level, you cannot you were in times of crisis, we devolve to the level of
Yes.
consciousness that has unhealed. So,
Correct.
in
Makes sense.
2023 and 2024, my dark night of the soul, in
Yes.
terms of my company,
Yes.
came from my unhealed 3 and hyper individualism and not
Yes.
recognizing needing being allowing myself to fully be structured and supported by a team. But
Correct.
I had to go back and heal that in order to evolve and then build
Yes.
structure and then build out back into visionary.
Yes. Makes sense.
Makes sense, right?
Logically, that actually does make sense.
It's
Yes.
one that at least we can apply logic to beyond
Correct.
astrology. Well, Justin, I have loved our conversation. I could keep on going talking to you for hours and hours.
Okay. Do it again soon. That's wow, that's like send me that book. I'll read that.
It was actually like I didn't study in a book, I studied it through my mentor, and you can't find the books on Amazon.
Of course.
Sh Right?
Why would that exist? Why
Why
would
would
that
that
exist?
be? I was surprised I found any of I mean, Steiner's great if you've read Rudolf Steiner. Yeah, Rudolf Steiner and we're gonna be doing a whole series on this podcast about how to apply his consciousness principles for morality and spiritual development into companies.
That would be good.
Yeah.
We're so aligned. Okay.
So let's have you back on the show, but I gotta ask to wrap this up,
Okay.
what does it mean to crown yourself?
If you love somebody, tell them.
Perfect. As always, my fellow sovereigns, go out there, get Justin's book, Epic Journey. It's coming out. Do you have the date officially?
Well, it's available for pre-order now, but early June it'll be out. But
Mm,
people, it's in Barnes and Noble and Amazon and Books a Million and all that stuff. It's available now.
all the places. So let's go. All the links down below will be available for you to go get the book and go on your own epic journey should you choose.
Have
Remember,
fun.
you can always choose to get off the boat in the
Have fun.
quest if it's no longer for you, but to sail around the world of possibility of
Yep.
who you can become in this journey in this lifetime. I highly recommend this book. So go out there, follow Justin, and as always, own your throne, mind your business because your reign is now.